When the old man was drowning in the storm, lightning split the sky, and there, through the rain, stood a lion. Not in Africa, but in Montana, and what that wild creature did next would make the world stop and listen. The storm hadn't just touched Montana that night, it had torn through it like an angry god. By dawn, the forest wasn't a forest anymore, it was chaos in motion. On the edge of the flooded riverbank stood a lion, a massive golden-maned male soaked to the skin, chest rising and falling like a living mountain. He wasn't supposed to exist here. He'd escaped from a private wildlife reserve 6 months ago, vanished into the wilderness, and was presumed dead. But he was here now, like a ghost out of Africa, reborn in the heart of Montana. Below him in the raging water, an old man was dying. Walter Grady clung to a splintered piece of wood, hands bloodied and trembling. The river battered him, slamming him against submerged rocks, dragging him under again and again. He coughed, gasped, tried to shout, but the water swallowed every sound. 40 years he'd spent protecting these forests as a ranger. Now the wilderness he'd guarded all his life was about to take him. The lion's golden eyes followed him through the storm. For a moment, man and beast locked in a silent, primal understanding. Both creatures of endurance, both fighting a battle against nature itself. Then through the fog came the faint hum of an engine. The lion turned toward the sound, muscles tightening. He gave a low, resonant growl, almost like a signal, and bolted into the mist. Jake Mercer gripped the steering wheel tighter as his pickup truck skidded through the muddy forest road. Branches lashed against the windshield, wipers smearing the rain into gray streaks. He'd been out since before dawn, responding to distress calls across the northern district. Collapsed bridges, downed power lines, missing hikers. The whole region was a disaster zone, but exhaustion wasn't what burned behind Jake's eyes. It was guilt. He could still see the look on Walter's face. The day the old man, his mentor and father figure, had begged him not to go home early. "Storm's rolling in, son," Walter had said with that half-smile of his. "You stay, we'll finish the survey together." But Jake hadn't listened. He had left before sunset, trying to beat the rain. Hours later, the rescue post got a call. Walter had gone missing in the flood zone. Now Jake was driving through hell to make up for that mistake. "Not again," he muttered. "Not this time." And then, something moved in front of the truck. A flash of gold. Jake slammed the brakes. Mud exploded from under the tires. For a heartbeat, his mind refused to process what his eyes were seeing. A lion, standing in the middle of a Montana forest road framed by rain and fog. Mane dark and dripping. Jake froze. Pulse thundered in his ears. What in God's name? The lion didn't move. It didn't growl. It didn't flinch. It just stood there, staring straight into Jake's headlights with calm, intelligent eyes. Then slowly it turned, took a few steps toward the trees, and stopped, glancing back as if waiting for him to follow. Jake's instincts screamed no, but something in that gaze pulled at him, a strange, unspoken certainty. He grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Mercer. You're not going to believe this, but I've got a lion, an actual lion, on North Trail heading toward the river. I'm going after it." Static hissed, then laughter. "Say again, Mercer." But Jake was already moving. The lion guided him through the forest like a ghost through fog. Whenever Jake slowed, it stopped and looked back, eyes glowing faintly in the light. Then the trees opened and Jake saw it. The river. Wild, merciless, and in the middle of it, a man barely clinging to a broken log. "Dear God," Jake whispered. He recognized that face instantly. "Walter!" The lion paced at the edge of the river, growling low as if urging him to hurry. And then memory hit Jake like a lightning bolt. Years ago, almost the same river, almost the same desperate struggle. And it had been his father in those rushing waters. He had been minutes too late that day. He had watched helplessly as life slipped from his father's hands, and the guilt had never left him. Haunting him, shaping him, reminding him of failure every time he hesitated. That shame, that pain, that unbearable loss, it all surged through him now. But staring at Walter, he felt a strange shift, as if the river itself whispered, "This is your chance to fix the past." Every stroke, every pull, every desperate kick was fueled by decades of regret. "Not this time," he muttered through chattering teeth. "Not this time, old man, not again." He plunged into the river. Water cold as knives, lungs burning, but he didn't stop. Every ounce of strength, every fiber of his being focused on reaching Walter. The current slammed into him, dragging him under, but he fought back, coughing, eyes wild. He reached Walter just as his grip gave out. "No!" Jake dove, caught the man's arm, pulling with all he had. Water filled his mouth, vision blurred, but he refused to let go. He kicked, pulled, screamed, "Come on, you're not leaving me again!" On the bank, the lion roared, cutting through the storm like thunder. Jake's boots hit solid ground at last. He dragged Walter onto the mud, collapsed beside him, and pounded his chest. "Come on, breathe." Finally, Walter coughed, a weak rasp, but alive. Jake broke into tears, shaking him, whispering, "I made it this time, I made it, I wasn't late." When he looked up, the lion was gone. But in the fog just beyond the tree line, a golden silhouette watched quietly. For a long, wordless moment, man and beast stared at each other. Jake understood. This wasn't just about the storm or the river. It was redemption. Two lost souls, one human, one wild, given a second chance to save what mattered. Hours later, rescue trucks lined the riverbank. Walter lay in an ambulance, weak but breathing. Jake sat on the tailgate, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the water. "Hell of a save, Mercer," one medic said. "Old man owes you his life." Jake smiled faintly. "No," he said softly. "He owed me nothing. I just answered the call." He didn't reply when asked what call. He only looked toward the tree line, where faint paw prints led back into the forest, fading into mist. "Thank you, old friend," he whispered. The breeze carried a low, distant sound, so faint it might have been imagined. A roar rolling softly across the mountains. Jake smiled through tears. He didn't know where the lion came from, or why it chose him. But he knew this. That morning a lion had asked for help, and a man had answered. And between them, between wilderness and human heart, something unbreakable had formed. As he drove away, sunlight spilled through the clouds, and the river sparkled calm again, as if nothing had ever happened. "Maybe we all get one moment to fix what broke us," Jake whispered. "Mine just came with a lion." The truck disappeared down the forest road, and somewhere deep within the mist, golden eyes watched one last time, before fading into the wild where legends begin. Sometimes the wild doesn't destroy, it saves. If you felt that roar in your chest too, leave a like, subscribe for more stories like this, and remember, maybe your second chance is already watching you from the mist.